All right, so Cersei says once you get past this rock and this hard place, there's one last temptation you're going to have to battle, which is you will find Helios cattle, the sun god's cattle. Now, Tiresias had just told him that he should not touch the sun god's cattle. So that's the last thing that he is going to face, the sun god's cattle. You cannot touch them, and then he should be able to get home. All right, so Cersei leaves him with this warning. Rough years then lie between you and your homecoming. Alone and old, the one survivor, all companions lost. So she's saying that's what will happen to him if his men touch the sun god's cattle. Now, Odysseus and his men start their journey at dawn, and he decides he is only going to tell his men about the sirens. So Cersei has told him about the sirens, Scylla, Charybdis, the sun god's cattle. He's only going to tell them about the sirens because he feels like they'll fight him. They won't listen to him. So he's only telling them about the sirens. So he follows Cersei's advice. He puts wax in their ears. They tie him up and they go past the sirens singing. Their lovely voices and ardor, so that means passion, appealing over the water made me crave to listen, and I tried to say, untie me to the crew, jerking my brows, but they bent steady to the oars. Then Paramedes got to his feet, and he and Eurylochus passed more line about to hold me still. So all rode on until the sirens dropped under the sea rim, and their singing dwindled away. So they got past the sirens, doing exactly what Cersei had said. Odysseus listened because he's Odysseus. All right, so they take out their earwax. They're good. But scarcely had that island faded in the blue air when I saw smoke and white water with sounds of waves and tumult, a sound the men heard, and it terrified them. Oars flew from their hands. The blades went knocking wild alongside till the ship lost way with no oar blades to drive her through the water. So the men are all dropping their oars. They're so terrified at the sound that they're hearing. Well, I walked up and down from bow to stern, trying to put heart into them, standing over every oarsman, saying gently, friends, have we never been in danger before this? More fearsome is it now than when the Cyclops penned us in his cave? What power he had! Did I not keep my nerve and use my wits to find a way out for us? Now I say, by hook or crook, this peril too shall be something that we remember. So he's like, men, we've been through tough things before. Yeah, we're scared, but we got this. This is going to soon be a memory. Grab your oars and let's go. Heads up, lads. We must obey the orders as I give them. Get the oar shafts in your hands and lay back hard on your benches. Hit these breaking seas. Zeus, help us pull away before we founder. So he's giving all of his men, orders. Here's how we're going to row the ship. Okay, so they're in action, and they're going towards Scylla, the six-headed monster. He doesn't tell them anything because there's nothing that anyone can do. Cersei was pretty clear 6 men are going to die. If he tells them that, they'll probably won't sail towards there, so he's got to just keep that from them, and they sail onward. All right, he says they would have dropped their oars in panic. Okay, and now he's looking up to the cliff to see if he can find Scylla. And all this time in travail, sobbing, gaining on the current, we rowed into the strait, Scylla to port, and on our starboard beam, Charybdis. I don't know which is which, but port and starboard are opposite sides of the ship. So on one side, you got a 6-headed monster. On the other side, you have a whirlpool. The men don't know anything about this. Dire gorge of the salt sea tide. By heaven, when she vomited, all the sea was like a cauldron, seething over intense fire when the mixture suddenly heaves and rises. So we have a monster on a cliff. We have ocean vomit fire. The shots spume, flying foam, soared to the landside heights and fell like rain. But when she swallowed the seawater down, we saw the funnel of the maelstrom, heard the rock bellowing all around, and dark sand raged on the bottom far below. So think of cartoons where you've seen this giant whirlpool and things being sucked down. That's what would happen if you went too close to her. So the men are all scared, of course. staring at the whirlpool, when then Scylla made her strike, whisking 6 of my best men from the ship. I happened to glance aft at ship and oarsmen and caught sight of their arms and legs dangling high overhead. Voices came down to me in anguish, calling my name for the last time. A man surf casting on a point of rock for bass or mackerel, whipping his long rod to drop the sinker and the bait far out, will hook a fish and rip it from the surface to dangle wriggling through the air. So these were borne aloft in spasms towards the cliff. So he describes watching his men being ripped out of his ship like a fisherman pulling a flailing fish out of the water. She ate them as they shrieked there in her den in the dire grapple, reaching still for me, and deathly pity ran me through at that sight, far the worst I had ever suffered, questing the passes of the strange sea. We rowed on. The rocks were now behind, Charybdis too, and Scylla dropped astern. All right, so he and his men have gotten through this rock in the hard place in the Sirens. Whew, they're home free, right? Wrong. All right, then the textbook gives us just a quick little summary. Odysseus tries to tell his men to go past this island, Thrinacia, the island of the sun god Helios, but they land. They're tired. They want to stop. Driven by hunger, they ignore him. They kill the sun god's cattle. All right. So Tiresias had said, don't touch the sun god's cattle. And Circe had just said, rough years then lie between you and your homecoming, alone and old, the one survivor, all companions lost, if his men eat the sun god's cattle. But they do. They eat the sun god's cattle. The sun god freaks out, tells Zeus. Zeus sends down a thunderbolt to sink Odysseus' ship. Odysseus is the lone survivor. He drifts to Ogygia, the home of Calypso, who keeps him for 7 years. So, all of Odysseus' men are dead. This collage by Romar Bearden, this is the depiction of Calypso saving Odysseus from his shipwreck. Everyone else is dead. Odysseus has been cast into the sea. Now Calypso will rescue him, but at what cost? He is going to be her captive for 7 years, which is how we met him at the start of the story. So now things are coming full circle. This is the end of the Apologoi. Now Odysseus is trapped by Calypso.